The Valen had once been a proud and powerful race. Their empire stretched across vast portions of the galaxy, their technology unmatched, their cities shining like jewels in the night. But now, their homeworld lay in ruins, ravaged by a brutal invasion. Their fleets had been destroyed, their armies scattered, and their once glorious cities reduced to smoldering ashes. The Valen had sent out a call for help, reaching every corner of the galaxy. It was a plea born of desperation, for their very existence hung in the balance. But as the messages were sent to the Galactic Council, the responses were not what they had hoped for. Every race they had once considered allies, every species they had aided in times past, turned their backs on them. The mighty Cylons, with their advanced artificial intelligence, ignored their cries. The ancient Vitherians, known for their wisdom, chose not to intervene. Even the ruthless Wartau, who lived for battle and conquest, saw no value in helping the Valen. Their message was clear. This is not our fight. The Valen were not foolish. They knew the galaxy had long been divided, each race focused on their own survival, power, and gain. But they had never expected such a cold response. They had once been a part of the galactic community, their allies and friends now choosing to stand by as their civilization crumbled. With their enemies closing, the Valen had nowhere else to turn. In their darkest hour, a spark of hope remained. The Valen leaders met in secret, speaking in hushed tones as they devised a plan. They would send one last message, a plea for help, to the humans. The Human Federation, a relatively new power in the galaxy, had remained neutral in galactic politics until now. Despite their smaller fleet and lack of advanced technology compared to the older established races, humanity had shown an unshakable will to survive and defend its own. The Valen didn't know if Earth would answer, but it was their only hope. Mara Holloway, a human diplomat known for her resolve and sharp mind, stood before a large communication panel. She had been briefed on the situation. The Valen's message was simple yet filled with urgency. We are on the brink of extinction. Help us, or we will fall. Mara hesitated for a moment, looking at the screen before her. The galaxy had watched Earth from a distance, dismissing humans as primitive, weak, and unworthy of any real attention. But what the galaxy didn't understand was the strength of the human spirit, their resolve in the face of overwhelming odds, their determination to protect those who could not defend themselves. She pressed the button, sending Earth's response across the stars. The Valen had waited anxiously as Earth's response to their plea slowly made its way through the galactic channels. Hours passed, and the fear in their hearts grew. Would the humans respond? Would they turn away like the others had? Finally, the message from Earth arrived. The council chamber of the Valen leadership was silent as the communication flickered to life on the large screen. Mara Holloway's face appeared, calm and determined. The humans had not rejected them. Instead, they had listened. We hear you, Valen. Mara's voice echoed through the chamber, strong and clear. Earth's Federation stands with you. You are not alone. A collective breath of relief swept through the room. For the first time in days, hope began to spark in their hearts. The humans had chosen to act when every other race had refused. In a galaxy filled with countless species focused only on their own interests, Earth was different. Humanity had chosen to help, not because they had something to gain, but because they believed in the value of life. Mara Holloway continued, outlining Earth's plan. Ships would be sent to Valen space to provide aid, medical supplies, food, and the advanced technology the humans had developed. Though their fleet was smaller and their technology not as advanced as some of the galaxy's older powers, Earth's humans had something far more powerful, an unbreakable will to fight and to protect. In the Valen council chambers, the leaders exchanged glances. They had expected words of reassurance, but not the action that had followed. The humans had committed. They would come. The Valen had one last chance to survive. The days that followed were filled with preparation. The Valen leaders began organizing, their defenses knowing the help would take time to arrive, but that time was something they did not have in abundance. Meanwhile, the people of Valen, who had once believed in the strength of their empire, now put their trust in these unknown humans. It was a strange feeling for them, being at the mercy of a race they had once looked down upon. Across the stars, Earth's fleet began to mobilize. The ships were not grand or massive like the battleships of the Vitherians or Cylons. They were sleek, practical, and efficient, ships designed to survive in the harshest environments. Led by the commander of Earth's fleet, General Aiden Cross, the humans set out for Valen space, ready to risk everything. General Cross was a man of experience, known for his strategic mind and his deep compassion for the people under his command. Though he had never fought a battle on this scale before, he was resolute. He knew the galaxy viewed humanity as weak, but he also knew the human spirit was capable of extraordinary things. His crew believed in him, and more importantly, they believed in their mission. As Earth's fleet moved closer to Valen space, the other races continued to watch from the sidelines, skeptical and unwilling to intervene. The galaxy's view of Earth as a minor player in galactic politics began to change. What had started as a simple act of kindness was now beginning to show the potential for something far more significant. The Valen were no longer alone. For the first time in a long while, they could see a glimmer of hope on the horizon, and it was human. As Earth's fleet moved toward Valen space, a sense of unease began to spread across the galaxy. The Valen's plea for help had been heard, but the response from humanity was more than just a simple gesture of kindness. It was a statement, one, that many of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful races were not ready for. The Valen, once a mighty empire, had placed their trust in humans, and now the rest of the galaxy was watching closely. Many races had dismissed the humans as a young, primitive species with no place in the galactic struggle. They were considered too small, too untested to make any real difference. After all, what could the humans offer against the might of the Vitherians or the ruthless War Tau? But as the first wave of Earth's ships entered Valen space, something unexpected began to happen. The ships, though smaller than the war fleets of the galaxy's dominant powers, moved with a precision and efficiency that surprised everyone. The human ships were not equipped with the same advanced weapons systems as their galactic counterparts, but they carried something else, something that none of the other races had counted on. Humanity's ability to adapt, to improvise, and to turn the tide in the face of overwhelming odds began to show. Earth's fleet, though outnumbered, used tactics that none of the galactic races had seen before. Their ships, equipped with specialized technology, evaded enemy fire with incredible agility. They relied on speed, deception, and strategy, methods that were unorthodox but incredibly effective. Commander Aiden Cross, leading the human fleet, had trained his crew for every scenario imaginable. He understood that victory didn't always come from superior firepower. Sometimes it came from outthinking the enemy. As Earth ships approached the Valen homeworld, General Cross made a bold decision to launch a daring strike against one of Zalvorth's leading supply ships, hoping to weaken the enemy's grip on the Valen system. The attack was swift and effective. Earth's ships moved in, using stealth technology to hide from the enemy's radar. The operation was flawless, catching the enemy off guard. The human fleet disabled the supply ship without firing a single shot, using precision targeting to disable its engines and disrupt its communication systems. It was a quiet victory, one that spoke volumes about humanity's ability to adapt to any situation. But while the Valen were grateful, not everyone in the galaxy shared that view. The Cylons, who had once viewed humanity as a curiosity, were beginning to grow concerned. The Vitherians, known for their wisdom and ancient knowledge, had always believed that humanity would eventually fade into obscurity. Yet here they were, outmaneuvering some of the galaxy's most feared enemies. The other races, from the War Tau to the Scythrians, watched in growing disbelief as the humans made their mark. A message began to spread across the galaxy. Humans were not the weak, primitive species that many had once thought them to be. They were a force to be reckoned with. And yet, for all their power, the humans were not motivated by conquest. They weren't fighting for glory, wealth, or power. They were fighting for something far simpler, their belief that no one should be left to suffer alone. As Earth's fleet moved deeper into Valen space, the galaxy began to realize that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their technology, but in their heart. The humans had proven that they would stand for those who could not defend themselves, even when every other race turned away. The war for the Valen homeworld was intensifying. Earth's forces, though still outnumbered, had managed to inflict significant damage on the invaders. Commander Aiden Cross, leading Earth's fleet, had proven that humanity's tactics could turn the tide of battle. But with each victory, the situation grew more complicated. Salvorth, the brutal warlord responsible for the Valen destruction, was not someone who would back down easily. Salvorth had been watching the humans closely. The Valen's allies had fallen away, leaving them to fight alone. But now, the humans had stepped in, surprising him and his forces at every turn. The warlord's patience was running thin, and he began to take more aggressive action. His fleet, once thought to be unstoppable, now faced a new kind of resistance: human resistance. The Valen leaders watched nervously from their council chambers, their eyes fixed on the progress of the human fleet. They had placed their faith in Earth, and the results so far were promising, but they could feel the weight of the growing danger. Salvorth's forces were pressing harder now, attacking from every angle, determined to crush any hope the Valen had left. "We need to act quickly," said a Valen general standing at a large holographic map of the battlefield. His voice was tense. "If we don't strike now, we may lose everything." Mara Holloway, the human diplomat who had led the negotiations for Earth's involvement, stood beside the Valen general. She had seen the destruction firsthand, and the stakes could not have been higher. Her fingers drummed on the table as she thought about the next move. "The Valen are still vulnerable," she said. "Salvorth is not going to stop, but neither will we." Commander Cross, back on the human fleet's flagship, had been receiving reports from his scouts. The warlord was preparing for a major assault. The humans had inflicted some damage, but they couldn't hold off the enemy forever with limited forces. "We'll need a diversion," General Cross said, his voice calm but filled with the weight of the situation. He turned to his officers. "I'll lead a strike on their supply lines. We'll hit them hard and fast, disrupt their resources, and give the Valen a chance to regroup." The officers nodded, understanding the gravity of the plan. It was risky, attacking supply lines in the heart of enemy territory, but it was the best option they had. The next few days were a blur of preparation. Earth's fleet was small compared to the Galactic empires, but it was agile, precise, and fearless. Each ship was a symbol of human determination. They had no choice but to succeed. The galaxy had already shown them its indifference, but they couldn't let that stop them. The human spirit was stronger than any enemy, and General Cross was determined to prove that. Meanwhile, in the distance, Salvorth watched Earth's ships move across the stars. The warlord had underestimated them once, but he would not make the same mistake again. His forces were preparing for a full-on assault, and this time, he would not let Earth's small fleet stand in his way. The battle was coming, and the galaxy would be forced to watch as humans fought, not for dominance but for survival. The storm was gathering, and Earth was ready to face whatever came their way. The silence of space was broken by the roar of human engines as Earth's fleet prepared to carry out their daring mission. General Aiden Cross stood on the bridge of the flagship, his eyes focused on the holographic map in front of him. The plan was set. The fleet was ready, but he knew that success was far from guaranteed. "We strike at dawn," he said, his voice steady. "Everyone knows their role. Stay sharp. We hit them fast and hit them hard. No room for mistakes." His officers nodded, each of them understanding the gravity of the mission. The enemy was waiting, and they would be ready. But the humans weren't worried. They had faced impossible odds before, and won. Meanwhile, the Valen watched the humans prepare for battle, their eyes filled with a mix of awe and gratitude. The Valen had been defeated and scattered across the galaxy, but now, in the face of humanity's determination, they were beginning to believe they could stand tall once more. Commander Rhea, A human officer known for her quick thinking and bravery was in charge of the Special Forces unit that would be leading the strike. She had been a key part of the planning, and now it was time to put everything into action. "We don't have much time," Rhea said, looking at her team. "We'll be going deep into enemy territory, and we can't afford to be caught. Follow my lead and we'll get the job done." Her team of elite soldiers, trained for the most dangerous missions, nodded in agreement. They knew the risks, but they also knew their mission was clear. They were going to strike at the heart of Zalvorth's forces, cutting off their supply lines and weakening their grip on the Valen system. The hours leading up to the strike were tense. Every member of the fleet knew what was at stake, but there was no fear, only focus. Humanity had a reputation for being adaptable, and now was the time to prove it. The fleet moved into position and the battle began. At first, the attack seemed like a typical military operation. The human ships darted through space with lightning speed, striking the enemy's supply ships before they even had a chance to respond. But then something changed. The humans weren't just fighting. They were outsmarting the enemy at every turn. They used their smaller, more agile ships to slip past Zalvorth's defenses, hitting them where it hurt the most. General Cross watched the progress unfold on his screen. His strategy was simple but effective. The humans would use their speed and knowledge of terrain to their advantage, evading the enemy's larger and more powerful forces. "We're making progress," Cross said, his tone calm but with a touch of excitement. "Keep the pressure on, don't let them regroup." The enemy forces were beginning to buckle. Zalvorth, seeing his carefully laid plans falling apart, began to make mistakes. The humans were unpredictable, and for the first time they were making him doubt his superiority. He had underestimated them, but the humans weren't done yet. As the battle raged on, it became clear that Earth's fleet wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting to win. The galaxy had underestimated them, thinking they were weak, but humanity had shown that their greatest strength wasn't in their weapons or their technology. It was in their will to fight, their determination to never back down. And with that, the tide of the war began to turn. The battle had raged for days, and despite their small numbers, the humans had made a significant impact. Earth's fleet had caused enough damage to the enemy's forces to slow their progress, but they weren't finished yet. General Aiden Cross knew that the key to winning this war wasn't just about fighting back, it was about striking at the heart of Zalvorth's operations. But to do that, the humans would need to take a huge risk. "We can't keep up this pace much longer," General Cross said as he stood before his officers, looking at the battle reports. "If we don't hit their main fleet, we won't have a chance to finish this. We need to disrupt their command structure." Rhea, the commander of the Special Forces unit, was with him. She had led her team through dangerous missions before, but this one was different. They were about to do something no one had attempted in this war. A single human strike force would infiltrate Zalvorth's flagship, deep within enemy lines, and destroy the heart of his operations. "We don't have much time," Rhea said, studying the data on the screen. "If we don't act now, we'll lose the advantage, but it's a dangerous mission. If we're caught, we won't make it out." Cross turned to her with a firm expression. "We don't have any other choice. We've come this far, and I'm not about to let humanity fail here. We'll hit them before they can react. This is the only way to win." The plan was set. The strike team would use the element of surprise to get past the enemy's defenses. They would sabotage key systems aboard the flagship, taking out the warlord's command center and weakening his ability to lead the battle. It was risky, but it was the only shot they had. Rhea and her team suited up, ready to board one of Earth's smaller, more agile ships. The mission was simple in theory. Get inside, plant the explosives, and get out. But it would be far from easy. Zalvorth's flagship was a massive fortress, heavily guarded by elite troops and automated defense systems. Even the most advanced human technology wouldn't guarantee success. As Rhea boarded the ship, she could feel the weight of the decision. This was a one-way trip for many of them. The risks were high, but the reward was even higher. If they succeeded, they could cripple the warlord's forces. If they failed, Humanity's efforts would be in vain. "You all know what's at stake," Rhea said to her team as they prepared for the mission. "We're the ones who make the difference. If we do this, the Valen have a chance, Earth has a chance, but we do it together, or we don't do it at all." The team nodded, their faces resolute. Each of them had made sacrifices, but now was the moment of truth. They boarded the ship, and with the hum of the engines, they launched toward the heart of the enemy fleet. As they made their way closer to Zalvorth's flagship, the tension in the air was palpable. The enemy's defenses were tightening, but the humans were determined. This was their moment. They knew that if they didn't take this chance, it might be their last. The mission was set into motion. As the human strike team closed in, the galaxy held its breath. The humans had made it this far, but whether they could deliver the final blow remained uncertain. The human strike team moved quickly and quietly through the dark corridors of Zalvorth's flagship. Every step they took brought them closer to the warlord's command center, but the tension was thick in the air. Every sound, every shadow, felt like a warning. The enemies were everywhere, and the slightest mistake could cost them everything. Rhea, the commander of the team, led the group through the maze of the ship. She had been through countless dangerous missions, but this one was different. There was no backup, no reinforcements, just her team and the task ahead. Their mission was clear: infiltrate the warlord's flagship, destroy the command center, and cripple his ability to lead the invasion. It was a deadly gamble, and the odds were stacked against them. "We stay quiet, we move fast," Rhea whispered to her team. "No mistakes. We get in, plant the explosives, and get out. Simple as that." Her voice was calm, but everyone knew the stakes. If they were caught, they wouldn't just lose the battle. They would lose the war. The team continued moving through the dark halls, their footsteps muffled by the metal floors. The air was heavy with anticipation, and Rhea couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. She knew the flagship's security systems would be tight, but she had expected this. The enemy wasn't stupid. Zalvorth had built his empire on strength and control, and his flagship was the heart of that power. They reached a security checkpoint, and Rhea signaled for the team to stop. One of her officers, Specialist Juno, stepped forward with a small device, quickly bypassing the security system. The doors hissed open silently, and they moved forward once more. As they approached the central hub, the main control room of the flagship, the tension grew even more intense. Rhea's heart raced in her chest. There was no turning back now. If they could destroy the heart of Zalvorth's operation, the enemy would lose their coordination, and the war could be over. The Valen would have a fighting chance, and humanity's role in the galaxy would be cemented. Rhea checked her watch. The clock was ticking, and time was running out. She couldn't afford to hesitate. The fate of the mission and the war rested on their success. They reached the command center doors, which stood massive and intimidating in front of them. Rhea could hear the low hum of the ship's core systems inside, and the thought of what lay beyond sent a chill down her spine. They would have to fight their way through if they were discovered, and they didn't have the manpower for a prolonged fight. It was now or never. "Get ready," Rhea whispered, pulling out her weapon. The team nodded, weapons drawn as they positioned themselves at the door. With a quick motion, Rhea breached the door. The team rushed inside, taking down the few guards left in the room with expert precision. The command center was now under their control, but it was not enough just to take it. They had to destroy it. Rhea placed the explosives, her hands steady, despite the pressure. She knew the clock was ticking. Each second felt like an eternity. As she finished setting the last charge, she looked around at her team. There was no going back now. This was their chance, and they had to take it. "Let's move," she said. "Get to the extraction point. We've done our part." The team moved quickly toward the exit, knowing that the countdown had begun. The explosive charges were set to tear the heart of Zalvorth's flagship apart, and with it, his grip on the war. But as they made their way through the corridors, they knew that the real battle was just beginning. Getting out alive would be just as difficult as getting in. The explosion rocked the entire flagship, sending shockwaves through the walls. Rhea and her team were thrown forward, the blast knocking them off their feet. For a brief moment, everything was chaos. Screams, alarms, flashing lights, and the sound of metal twisting under pressure. But Rhea, shaking off the dizziness, quickly regained her senses. The mission was far from over. "Move. Now," she shouted, struggling to stand up. The rest of the team scrambled to their feet, their faces set with determination. The charges had done their job. The command center was destroyed, and Zal Vorth's ability to control his forces was shattered. But the real challenge now was getting off this ship alive. "Keep your focus. We've got to reach the extraction point," Rhea barked. "We don't have much time." The team moved swiftly through the corridors, their pace quickening as they heard the sounds of enemy reinforcements coming their way. Zal Vorth's forces had been thrown into disarray by the explosion, but they were far from defeated. The flagship was on high alert, and Rhea knew it would be only a matter of time before they were surrounded. But the humans were different. They had faced danger before. They had fought impossible odds and won. Now they had to do it again. As they moved through the corridors, they encountered a group of Zal Vorth's elite soldiers. Without hesitation, Rhea signaled her team to take cover. The firefight was quick and brutal. The humans, though outnumbered, fought with a ferocity that stunned the enemy. Every shot fired, every move made, was calculated. The soldiers didn't hesitate. They were a team and they moved as one. In moments, the elite soldiers were taken down and the team was on the move again, leaving behind the sound of silence where once there had been gunfire. But they couldn't afford to stop. The flagship was collapsing around them and they had no idea how long they had until the entire ship came apart. "Rhea, we're almost at the extraction point," Specialist Juno called out, voice strained but hopeful. "We're not out of the woods yet," Rhea replied. "Keep your eyes open." They reached the last corridor leading to the escape pods, but their relief was short-lived. Another group of enemy soldiers appeared, blocking their path. Rhea's heart raced. They couldn't afford another fight. They had no time left. "Cover. Me!" Rhea shouted as she sprinted toward a nearby control panel. The rest of the team opened fire, holding off the enemy soldiers. Rhea's hands flew across the panel, desperately trying to access the ship's emergency systems. She found the override she was looking for and slammed her hand down on the button, triggering the emergency lockdown of the corridor. The doors to the escape pods opened with a loud hiss and the team made a break for it. "Go, go, go!" Rhea yelled as they rushed into the escape pods. The soldiers piled in one by one, breathless but alive. The door sealed shut, and with a final glance at the chaos unfolding on the flagship, the pods shot away from the ship. As they drifted into space, safe for now, Rhea allowed herself a moment of relief. They had made it. The mission was a success, and they had crippled Zal Vorth's command structure. But the war was far from over. The humans had made their mark, but the real test was yet to come. Would the galaxy finally see the power of humanity, or would they still refuse to acknowledge the threat that Earth now posed? Rhea looked out the small viewport of the pod, watching the massive flagship slowly break apart in the distance. For the first time in a long while, she allowed herself to believe humanity could win this. The escape pods landed on a remote moon far from the battle. The humans had made it out of Zal Vorth's flagship, and the mission had been a success. But despite the relief of surviving, the team knew the real work had only just begun. They were alive, but the war was far from over. Commander Rhea sat quietly in the pod, staring out at the empty space. The rest of her team was settling in, catching their breath, but Rhea's mind was racing. They had destroyed the heart of Zal Vorth's forces, but there was no way to know how much damage had been done to his fleet. Zal Vorth was ruthless, and if he wasn't taken down soon, he would regroup and strike back harder. "We did it, Rhea," Specialist Juno said, breaking the silence. "We've crippled his command. The galaxy will know what we did." Rhea nodded but didn't speak. She wasn't interested in glory. She knew the enemy wouldn't stop just because one flagship had fallen. They needed to keep pushing forward. The team had barely enough time to catch their breath before Earth's fleet contacted them. General Cross was on the line. "Rhea, report in." His voice crackled through the communication channel. "What's the situation?" Rhea straightened and took a deep breath. "We've completed the mission, General. The command center is destroyed. Zalvorth's forces are scattered and in chaos, but they're still a threat. We need to stay on the offensive. General Cross was silent for a moment before replying. You've done more than anyone could have hoped for. The galaxy's going to be watching this closely. The other races, they're finally seeing what humans are capable of. We've shown them we're not just a small, insignificant race anymore. As the conversation continued, Rhea felt a strange sense of pride swelling inside her. The humans had always been underestimated by the galaxy's older, more powerful species. For years they had been dismissed as unworthy of serious attention, but now they had proven themselves in the most critical way possible. They weren't just surviving, they were winning. The communication ended, and Rhea turned to her team. The next phase begins now. We need to take advantage of the confusion we've created. We'll fight alongside the Valen and help them rebuild. But we won't stop there. We'll make sure Zalvorth's forces don't recover. The team stood up, their faces set with determination. They had made it this far, and they weren't about to give up now. The galaxy may have turned its back on the Valen, but the humans had come through. And now, Earth had allies, new allies who would remember the humans' bravery for a long time. Across the galaxy, the other races were beginning to stir. The Valen were not the only ones watching. The Cylons, the Vitherians, and the Wartau, all of them were taking notice of humanity's unexpected strength. The humans were no longer a race that could be ignored. They had entered the fight, and they were proving that they were a force to be reckoned with. On distant worlds, the leaders of the galactic empires watched the news reports of Earth's victory. They had believed humanity would never be a serious threat. But now, they realized their mistake. The humans had shown the galaxy that when they fought, they didn't just survive, they conquered. And the universe was about to learn that humanity would not back down, no matter the odds. The aftermath of the attack was a turning point for the galaxy. Humanity had shown the universe its strength. The destruction of Zalvorth's flagship had sent shockwaves through the galaxy, and no one could deny the growing influence of Earth. The other races had dismissed humans for so long, but now they were forced to rethink everything. Commander Rhea and her team were back aboard the flagship, their mission complete. They had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. As they looked out at the stars, Rhea couldn't help but feel the weight of what they had achieved. The Valen were still struggling to recover, but they had a chance now, thanks to humanity's intervention. But Rhea knew this victory was just the beginning. The galaxy had seen what humans were capable of, but the war was far from over. General Cross walked onto the bridge, his face serious but filled with pride. You did it, Rhea. Earth's name will be known across the stars now. Rhea stood up, nodding. It wasn't just me, it was all of us. Humanity proved we can stand up and fight. We don't run, we protect. We fight for what's right. The galaxy's leaders were already reacting to the news. The Valen, once isolated and alone, had now become a powerful ally of Earth. They had witnessed humanity's strength and had joined forces with them. The other races, who had turned their backs on the Valen, were beginning to see Earth as a rising power. Some were afraid of the humans' unexpected success, while others were beginning to acknowledge the potential for alliances. Across the galaxy, a message was spreading. Earth had become a force to be reckoned with. Humanity was no longer just a small, insignificant race. The humans had fought against impossible odds and had come out victorious. They had earned the respect of the Valen, and now it seemed they were earning the respect of the galaxy. We've made our mark, General Cross said, looking out at the stars. But this is just the start. There's more to do. Rhea agreed. The war with Zalvorth was not yet over, and Earth had many challenges ahead. But now they had allies. Now the galaxy knew what humanity was capable of. Humanity had always been defined by its resilience. When others turned away, humans stepped in to help. When the galaxy doubted them, humans proved them wrong. And now, the legacy of Earth would be one of strength, unity, and courage. The humans had become something more than just survivors. They had become the protectors of the weak, the defenders of peace, and the warriors who fought for what was right. As Earth's fleet continued to move through space, there was no doubt that humanity's influence would continue to grow. The galaxy had changed, and it would never be the same again. The once dismissed human race had found its place in the stars. The legacy of the humans had begun. And this was just the beginning.